Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Penny Searson. I'm the Client Support Manager for the South West Procurement Alliance. Thank you all for joining us on this joint webinar being held by SWPA and ISO Spaces, who are one of our appointed companies on the off-site construction of new homes framework. This is the third in a series of presentations featuring our framework suppliers, each of which have focused on a different theme. The theme today is emergency accommodation. I'll speak for about 5 minutes as an introduction and then hand you over to Ben Treleven and Greg Hobbs from ISO Spaces. Ben and Greg will discuss how the company's rapidly deployable off-site housing solutions have the ability to tackle the UK's emergency accommodation needs, particularly in light of the current pandemic. They will then present ISO Spaces' industry-leading developer tool, producing remote site surveys and feasibility studies for vacant land. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, but we'd like to have more of a kind of discussion approach. So please, if you have any questions, put them into the panel box shown below and press send. We'll also be issuing a copy of the slides to all attendees, and we'll be uploading a recording of the webinar itself eventually to our website for future viewing. So to briefly introduce you to the South West Procurement Alliance, or SWPA, or SWPA, we launched last year as the regional arm of the wider LHC group, who have been operating in the public sector since 1966. We are a team of 4 currently, all living in Devon and have an office in the centre of Exeter. Our vision is through improved procurement to deliver better homes and buildings that enhance local communities. We have a number of frameworks in place based around planned maintenance, compliance, consultancy and construction. We are a not-for-profit .gov organisation, and as employees of the London Borough of Hillingdon, we are bound to their protocols, policies and procedures. Whilst LHC is a national organisation, our service is delivered via regional hubs with local teams to ensure that we can deliver to regional priorities. Last year, nationally, the frameworks delivered about £350 million worth of work across approximately 720 projects for around 279 public sector clients across various sectors. In terms of new frameworks, we're about to tender for a non-residential modular buildings, roofing systems, door sets and a non-residential contractor framework for schools and community buildings. If you would like to review our proposals for any of these, please contact me after the webinar. As a not-for-profit, we invest our surplus for community benefit, and our approach in the South West is to offer grants to small charities of up to £1,000 as nominated by clients who are delivering projects through our frameworks. Our Community Benefit Fund is administered by the South West Community Matters organisation, who are experts in delivering small grants to the voluntary sector. This slide shows some examples of the groups supported to date. So up in the top left, we have Trowbridge Futures. They're based in Trowbridge Shopping Centre and have a range of facilities available for local people to use. And they do a lot of work with digital inclusion for the elderly, and they have a community wardrobe as well, which is quite a unique thing. In the top right, we have Rusty Road to Recovery, just based outside of Sedgemoor. They're a support service for people with mental health, and they help people with mental health conditions to feel much better by teaching them how to do welding and other skills and crafts. In the bottom left corner, we've got St Paul's Adventure Playground, or the Ape Playground in Bristol. Bottom middle, we have a specific playground for autistic children at a school in Bournemouth, and for their siblings to use also, as the whole thing of going to school can be quite traumatic, particularly for the younger siblings of children with autism. And then lastly, on the bottom right, we have Thorncombe Village Shop, which is an essential local service which enables elderly people in particular to spend time with one another in a social setting. So our off-site construction of new homes framework fits in with Category 1 and Category 2 of the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government definitions, which translate as volumetric and panelised solutions. The NH2 framework is the second version of the framework for the LHC group and features 4 work streams offering panelised modular solutions using various materials and structural elements. There are both turnkey and supply-only options. There are a total of 12 suppliers on the framework who can be used across various options such as room on a roof, houses, apartments, temporary accommodation and high energy. There are 2 ways of appointing companies to our framework, either mini tender or direct award. The benefit of direct award is that it can be as quick as 5 days, which is a very useful option when a client has either an emergency requirement, something has fallen through, or the client knows exactly what they want. We have done all the legal and regulatory checks and continue to do them during the life of the framework, so the procurement process is much simpler and less time consuming for the end user. Supporting the NH2 framework is our recently launched Offsite Project Integrator framework, which offers specialist consultants who can guide you through the MMC process from initial feasibility to on-site completion. The Offsite Project Integrators will ensure all stakeholders work effectively to maximise the benefits that MMC can provide. So what's been happening in terms of funding for affordable housing recently? There are some promising figures in the spring budget, including an extension of the Affordable Homes Programme with a new multi-year settlement of 12 billion. And there's over 1 billion of allocations from the Housing Infrastructure Fund to build nearly 70,000 new homes in high demand areas across the country. It doesn't seem such a long time ago, but at the same time, a world away, the 11th of March. We've obviously all been in lockdown and many businesses have ceased, although interestingly, not many of our off-site manufacturers have had orders closed for more than a couple of weeks. In addition to the figures already stated, the spring budget also highlighted 237 million for long-term accommodation for up to 66,000 people and 144 million for accompanying support services, which are actually really crucial to the vulnerable people, in particular people coming off the streets. And more recently, and most relevant to this webinar, the 24th of June mini budget announced that there will be 105 million for interim housing support to keep 15,000 people off the streets, 85 million new funds from the Treasury and 20 million from existing funds. This is money for interim housing, tenancies, paying deposits, etc., and finding alternative accommodation, such as the idea that we could use student accommodation to house some of these people. One of the biggest challenges for local authorities now is to ensure that rough sleepers do not return to the streets. Here's one example of a project in Watford where a small warehouse has been converted into tiny studio flats, 7 of which will have no windows at all. Is this likely to be the future? Well, we hope not, and we see no reason why it should when there are several manufacturers out there, including ISO Spaces, who can quickly and effectively respond to emergency accommodation needs, whilst ensuring safe and comfortable living standards for residents. So we're all familiar with the Construction Leadership Council's roadmap to recovery, with its clear signposting to MMC, which is fantastic, and the Prime Minister's Build, Build, Build announcement, which interestingly was actually delivered from a modular factory. But where are we now? So on the positives, we obviously have the measures announced under Build, Build, Build. We've got 9 billion for current affordable homes programme, extended to March 2023 now, and the retrofit programme has been announced to improve existing homes and fight against fuel poverty and make existing stock suitable for people to live in. In terms of the challenges, some of you might be aware of a recent report from Savills. They did this report for Shelter. It was reported that 4,300 social rental homes have been delivered this year, and 80,000 less homes across all sectors. So we could anticipate that there would be many less homes built, but it's quite a dire situation. There's a Rough Sleepers initiative, and the question of, is there any more money actually coming through on that? A lot of councils, clients, housing associations and builders of social housing are aspiring to zero carbon building, but at the moment we know it's more expensive, so that's another challenge for us in order to help those clients to meet their targets. And how much of the money that's being announced is really new money? It's clear that if the New Deal plan is going to work, the government needs to be far more innovative and flexible in their approach to house building. That's me. I'm now going to hand you over to Ben Treleaven of ISO Spaces, who is the Managing Director. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ben Treleaven, the co-founder and managing director of ISO Spaces. So we make permanently portable modular buildings based on recycled shipping containers. I need Penny control of the screen, please. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Got it. Right, here we go. So I'm going to run through a short presentation on who we are and what we do at ISO Spaces. Do feel free to jump in and ask any questions as we go along. I'm well aware that I don't like being just talked at, so I'm sure you don't as well. I believe there's a raise hand button you can just click if you want to do that. If you want to engage in anything as we go through, then please do stop me. So as you can see here on the front, there's some of our buildings. These are made from shipping containers based in Ealing. I'll touch a bit more detail about what that actually looks like as we go through. So ISO Spaces is an industry-leading, award-winning designer and manufacturer of modular buildings. We started off just making the actual buildings themselves, but we now offer a full turnkey solution, offering the full REBA process for design through to delivery. We've got ISO 9001 for that. And we also, in the last 12 months, gained the BOPAS, Build Off-Site Property Assurance Scheme. This goes along with our type approvals and a lot of other regulatory certifications that we have, which give us a market-leading product. So what we're looking to do, as you can see from the title of this next slide, is to let people unlock their property portfolio. So our buildings are suitable for anything from 5 years to 50 years or longer if we want to put them on a site. So we're looking to, as our niche in the market, whilst of course we can still build permanent developments, what we're looking to do is activate interim sites that are currently not being used for anything in particular, and be able to utilise those for housing. And we also use them for retail, not so much anymore, office building, anything that can add extra revenue generation to sites that aren't being used. So we do all of this in-house, and we have one fixed factory facility at the moment, which is actually up in Manchester. But we also operate what's called a flying factory model. So, for example, we built in Kent last year. So we took a factory on for 12 months, built 300 units there, created local labour and local jobs. And the same is applicable to other areas. If we're looking to build anything, we can actually set up a local factory to deliver all of those units. So it also creates jobs as well as creating housing in the local economy. So it's very much a cyclical thing. So the factory can produce up to 20 units a week, and obviously that can be replicated across multiple factories, and we can land 20 units a day on site. And the beauty of what we do, when you talk about MMC, I'm sure everyone's heard off-site construction, it's very much buzzwords across the industry. Typically, actual off-site construction is only done about 65% off-site, and then you've still got a lot of site works and packages to do. Our off-site is actually 95% off-site, so there's only 5% of work to do on site when the units land, when they're joined together, which is why they can be picked up and they can be redeployed to another site. Generally, off-site manufacture is built off-site, put together on site, done, whereas ours are permanently portable. And for example, I'll come on to here's a list of our clients here. Come on to some of our other schemes. These are more of the bespoke style units, just to give you an example of how our work started. If we look at these schemes here in Ealing, the one down in the multicoloured one in the bottom right hand corner as you're looking at it, that is only on that site for 7 years. It's actually 5 blocks of 40 or 50 maybe, and they're being picked up each block, and they'll be redeployed in different locations, so they can be redeployed in different ways to activate new sites once they've served a purpose on this original site. So here's some other examples. So again, we've done 3 sites in Ealing, I think in the last 3 years, probably nearly 1,000 units. Look, all this is emergency accommodation, and these are done on deals leased back to the councils as well. So we'll wrap up, they give us a piece of land, and we will put the units on, fund them, finance them, and they just provide us with a amortised contract against the local housing allowance. This is something I'll touch on a bit more as I get a bit further into the presentation. This is to give you an example of some of the design work we do. So this is just, this is part of a design and access statement for a site in Bromley. So we would have taken the client requirements and we would have started the whole process with these initial designs and all of the planning work. And this is to highlight that we don't just do housing and pop out modules. We are very much interested in taking a placemaking approach to our strategy and incorporating other things rather than just the housing into the build to give people a place to live rather than just a building to live. There's some up close shots of the containers joining together. Just to give you an example of it, literally is plug and play. And this is going to be a little video, which I don't know if you can hear the sound coming, but you might well be able to hear me still talking over the top, but I'll be quiet for a minute. So this is us landing units down the site in Cardiff. So these units were completed on site off-site in Kent, brought down and dropped in over a couple of days into the pre-prepared site. The units were finished with our external surface mounted finishing system, where we actually clad whatever finish the client wants the units done in. They don't left like a containerised finish, they actually fit the container molds into the locking points, so we can exchange the finishes for anything they like. Something we're definitely really pleased with this one. We've had a lot of interest in building more. I'm sure you can see why. It's fantastic development. We don't know what it is to ship the container. All of our walkways and stair cores we build in-house ourselves as well. They're fully modular, so they all drop down and integrate. All the services run through the walkways. Again, all based on frames to be delivered. Full kitchens and bathrooms in every unit. That's not actually our standard kitchen, that's one that was requested by Cardiff Council, so we can make changes depending on particular suppliers. If you will buy from, if you like your housing to feature the same kitchens, etc., then we can incorporate that into our supply chain, no problem. All of these units also come with a 60-minute fire rating, which is something that we didn't need to adopt. You only needed a 30. We've decided to adopt a 60 across the board, as I'm sure that's going to be coming as the regulations continue to change. So I'll be happy to share that video with you. It's on our website if you want to watch it again without me talking over it. So the benefits of module. I think the wrong way. There we go. So to go a bit more into the financing structure that I mentioned beforehand, our modular solutions are suitable for interim use, medium or long term, for brownfield sites or any other temporary sites that need to be used for more permanent solutions. So we can be provided with land. We can also provide land as part of a deal if it's specified where. What we're looking for is an operator, which would be a council, a housing association, an RP. And we can provide funding, land, buildings, and we can wrap that all together over a long lease term, which allows you to take the buildings as OPEX rather than CAPEX and essentially lease an entire turnkey development. This is something we think is quite unique in our offering, and a lot of it is based across the product that we have and the packages that we put together, and because we do the full turnkey. So if that is something you'd like to know a bit more about, please do get directly in touch with me, and I'll be happy to explain some live examples in more detail of how that's worked across other housing associations and councils and developers. So do get in touch on that. As I touched on earlier, we like to take an integrated approach to our developments and include some placemaking in there, and try and take out just building massive bulk developments. We want them to be a place where people want to live as well. So we do work with Future City, one of the preeminent placemaking consultants in London, to help deliver that across all of our schemes. So I'm going to pass over to my colleague Greg in a couple of minutes, and he's going to talk you through a bit more of the front end sort of groundbreaking prop tech that we've got, and how we actually mass and design schemes initially to test their feasibility, and how we produce as much as we can without requiring sort of designers and interaction. We can actually do it all through the use of technology. But this is just to give you an idea of some of our initial floor plans, what we call a type 1, a type 2 and a type 3. So they can either be 1 bed, 2 bed or 3 bed, depending on what their ultimate use is for. We've got a foundationless pad solution that we use wherever we can. As you saw in the Cardiff video, we weren't using that there. We were digging that out and putting more of a traditional foundation system in. But wherever we can, particularly on more temporary sites, we like to use our own pad foundation system, which means we don't even need to break ground. So we can stack 4 stories high on these and not even have to put a spade in the ground and leave. So it's a very light touch solution, and it almost gives you portable groundworks. So here's an example. Again, Greg will run into a bit more of this with the prop tech, but this is an example of what we would produce as a front end. So we'd look at a scheme, take the site, redline it, draw it out, using the tech, and we'll be able to, because of our fixed prices of construction, be able to give a very accurate price on the build and a very accurate time on the program of getting the development finished. So I'll flick over this slide. That's what Greg's going to cover. So our process, you'll be familiar with looking at this as the REBA stages. So at ISO Spaces, we cover everything through the initial brief and the strategic definition to a develop project brief, the concept design, the actual development of the products and technical design, the construction and the handover, and the aftercare as well. So we'll fulfill every part of that process. We don't have to. Some people might just want to buy product from us, and that's absolutely fine. Some people may want us to finance other products, or they might want us to just do the front end, or they might want us to do just the landing of another modular product. So we're happy to integrate as much or as little as possible into that process. But the overarching fact here is that we can do full turnkey delivery for you, so you don't have to worry about any parts of that process. It'll all be looked after. Here's some more images here. This is Watermill Wharf. This is an innovation studios we built, so it's not just housing. We can do office work, retail. So this is down in Rochester. This was the finished green farm development, or not quite finished. It just needs the final cladding put on there that we did down in Cardiff recently. And this is Westfields, the last one we did in Ealing. Again, a different finish with the wooden boards there. Fits in really well with its surroundings. And obviously, again, that was all delivered by ISO Spaces start to finish. So that's everything from me. Unless anyone's raising their hand now for any questions on this, I will hand over to my colleague, Greg. There you go, Greg. I will mute myself and turn my camera off and let you run through this, and then come back if there's any questions at the end. Cheers.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me all right. I'm going to share my screen now, so keep your fingers crossed the right thing pops up. Give me a second. Here we go. So what I'm going to show you then is a bit of technology that we're, as you can tell from Ben there, we're really proud of. Really innovative from ourselves. I don't think anybody else in this sort of, in our game anyway, has got quite this far with the technology. So just going to highlight to you how it works, how easy it is to produce an initial feasibility on a site for you. It'll take me 5 minutes to run you through this. Really would now be a great time. Obviously not a lot of questions through Ben's talk, but if anybody has got a site in mind that they'd like me to explore and make it a real life example, please put your hand up now or pop it in the chat or whatever you've got to do. If anybody wants me to highlight it. If not, luckily I've got one in mind. But does anybody want to shout out now with a site? Don't think anyone's going to. Okay, let's crack on with mine then. So I just picked a spot in Exeter that I'd already seen. As Ben explained, we're at this stage really where we can find these sites ourselves, buy them ourselves, develop them, and then lease them to you guys. So whoever's patch this is on in Exeter, got one ready to go for you. So this site, so we just literally type in the postcode, go straight into the site, or type in the address, whichever way you want to find it. We just then need to highlight the exact site. So a lot of stuff we do might be on a disused car park or garages or whatever it might be, just a brownfield sort of very underutilized site. So it's this here, just another little Tesco car park that's actually for sale. So this is our site here that's up for grabs. All I will do from here is start plotting the site. So again, I'll be more than happy to do this for anybody that's listening in. Send me any sites you have and we'll run one of these initial feasibilities for you. So all we do is start by plotting out the site. So I'm going to do it quite roughly. It won't take too much time over this, but this is something along these lines. This is our site. can be as sort of creative as you want with it, get whatever you like. Let's just do that. And it will come up firstly, so we just give it a name, tell you on there where it is, and you just cite area. So you know straight away whether or not you're miles off on that. But this is about 4,000 square metre site. Ben will correct me if I'm wrong, but we can probably do anything from about 1/4 of an acre for a site. That'll give us enough room probably for 50 odd units, depending on how we stack them, which I'm going to highlight in a minute. And again, as Ben mentioned, it's not just the housing that we do. We are here to talk about that today. But we can use this tool to show hotels, offices as well. It's not quite set up for mixed use or anything like that. But if you've got any other colleagues in other departments, whatever it might be, anybody wants to explore hotel options or office options, I'll be more than happy to do that for you as well. But for the purpose of today, we're just looking at homes. So then we are just at the point where we're going to mass this site out. So we'll just start by selecting whether we want single units or double sort of back-to-back units. I'll just again do this quite roughly for you. I won't go into any, make it too exciting, but it's literally as simple as this. So we'll drag the units around wherever we want them. Let's put a few there to begin with, and then we can just move them around, do whatever we want to do with them. Change the number of floors. So typically between 1 and 4 floors. We can go higher. Any more than 4 floors will need a lift. So it doesn't always become quite as cost effective. So we've stopped it at 4 so far. So let's show that over 3 floors, give you a total number of units down here. So you know that's 162 units in total. Let's chuck single story unit down here. Let's make that 2 stories. And we'll obviously always factor into we're going to leave room for car parking and so on. We can actually get it to show car parks as well. Like Ben just touched on there with the placemaking side of things. It's not just about dumping a load of containers there and away you go. We want to make it a place that people want to be. So we'll just chuck a little cafe in there. Obviously that can be whatever you want. Can't make it straight. Trying to tidy it up a little bit. Put as many units on there, stack them as high as we want, but let's just keep it nice and simple for the purpose of this presentation. You then get to choose your container mix type. So whether you want, so 1 person, just to put it into a bit of detail, a type 1 would be for would sleep 1 to 2 people, 1 to 2 bed spaces. A type 2 would be 1 to 4 bed spaces, and a type 3 would be 1 to 6 bed spaces. You can then jiggle these around depending on what suits, what you need in your particular area. But typically we find something along these lines, 20% 1 bedroom, 30% 2 bedroom, 50% 3 bedrooms. Let's just leave it at that for a minute. We then go on to all the different types of finishes, again, that Ben's just mentioned, whatever type of external finishes you want. So firstly, choose the color of the units, just leave them as anthracite. And then what type of, let's just zoom in a little bit so you get a better view. What type of finish you want on there. So you see down at Cardiff, I think it was large cladding or something that went on there. Was a nice finish. You can make it look like traditional housing if you want it to look like brick housing. That's up to you, or a panelized finish on there. Again, whatever suits. Let's just show the timber cladding for the purpose of this again. Choose your window elevations. So again, let's spin around to this side. See what color you want your window elevations. Any color, will leave those as tinted glaze for a minute. And then again, what do you want on the roof? You can either leave it as just simple container profile, obviously the cheapest option. Stick a grass roof on there, stick solar panels on there. Do whatever you want to do. We'll leave those on there for the minute. And that is as simple as that. So within 3 or 4 minutes, create the space. Let's download our feasibility, see what it comes up with. As you can probably imagine, that would take an architect probably a week or 2 to do that. We'll probably charge you a few £1,000s. I'm happy to do it for free. So it'll take me 5 minutes. So you can see why we're so happy with the with the technology. And this is what it will produce for you. So your own feasibility study with a cover page, a little bit more background like Ben's just touched on about ourselves here at ISO Spaces, and the benefits of site manufacturing and the modular builds that we do. Accreditation again from BOPAS, and really why we're here today because of the SWPA. So these are, you know, for an appointed supplier. Some of our awards as well. So, and one thing I don't think Ben did mention, last year we came 10th in the Sunday Times Fast Track 100. Again, we're very proud of that. So we are the 10th fastest growing company in the UK. Very proud of that award. Again, on your feasibility, you can have some more detail about the typical layouts. So nothing too hard to understand here. Type 1, Type 2, Type 3 or Type 4 is just how many containers we're using and how they're joined. You'll get the individual spaces that you get for each, your individual bathroom, your kitchen, bedroom, and your energy ratings on there. Just an overview from above, bird's eye view of your site location, how the layout might work, and the GA plan. Oh, got a bit wonky there, but I'll tidy that up for anyone that wants me to. Just again, a view of your external finish options. Surface mounted finishing, we'll call it. Your solar panels and the tinted glaze. You'll get your elevations. Should have shown you that when we were going through the actual tool, but you can see your elevations at any point. This one's quite long and skinny, so it looks a bit funny the way it's come out on there, but these are your elevations. We'll go into the full detail of the material schedule, so everything from what's going to be on the walls, floors, ceilings. First thing people always ask is, okay, what are you going to use on the floors? What are you going to use there? So this just answers all of those questions immediately. Obviously, all of this can be changed to suit client preferences, just the same as the external finishes. But this is what we have, again, type approval for, and just the easiest and most cost-effective way for us to produce these units. You'll then have all the fixtures and fittings, and right the way down to bathroom taps, towel rails, everything's on there. Door handles. You see there again the kitchen units that we just discussed. Typically, we like to put ones like this in because they're very easy to replace. You see they just slot straight into a shell like that. So if in 10 years' time the kitchens need replacing, very simple. You know, morning's work, go in there, take the old one out, stick a new one in. Again, kitchens are completely down to client preference. And then the important bit, really, the costs. So, and we're sort of, as Ben touched on, happy to do as much of little as a project as you need us to. So these are typical rates for a Type 1, a Type 2 and a Type 3. If you just wanted us to supply the units, X work, so to speak, that'd be your cost. Then you've got a breakdown of the cost for the installation of them, your walkways, your staircases, so the cladding, your solar panels, and then our design and management fees. So it's all broken down. Again, so that's all yours for 5 million. They are available for outright purchase, but probably easier to package it up on a lease deal, make it slightly more palatable. And then you've got this will put together a program for you based on the scheme that we put together. So it'll adjust the program. So you see there you can have that entire scheme delivered in less than a year. And that's even taken into account. We've allowed 12 weeks to put it through the planning process as well. And importantly, what have we allowed on this? So we've allowed 7 weeks for that installation. Probably won't even take us that long, as you saw from the Cardiff video. That's why we're saying 95% of it is done off site. Then take us 7 weeks on site to do that, assuming the foundations were in place, should we need them. If that was a traditional housing build, that would probably take over a year, I imagine. So it's a fraction of the time, really. That's the key benefit. And what the tool does as well is picks up on the ground that we're working with and what type of ground it thinks it would be suitable for. And you'll see here it says we're suggesting one of the options would be to put it straight down to jack pads, and showed you with the foundation that we can use, or foundationless solution. Put them straight down on jack pads, give you a bit of detail on how they work. Just much easier to be redeployed in the future, saves us breaking the ground at all. And then again, on the end, we've just stuck a couple of the case studies. Hope Gardens, and people are in there. Same again for the innovation studios we showed you, and another development we did for Ealing Council as well. Again, some of the councils we work with, so you've got Ealing Council, Portsmouth Council, Cardiff Council, all the other bigger brands that we've worked for the more smaller bespoke units. But that is what you can expect to get from us. Just simply download that, send it over as a PDF. So if anybody has any sites can't stress enough. I'm more than happy to run that, give you some figures to get your head around, show what it will look like, show you how many units you can get on there. Always the first question that we get. How many units it's going to have on there, how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to take. You can answer all of those questions in about 5 minutes. I think we just had a question pop up there, but I'll stop sharing for a moment. Sorry, Penny, did you want to pick up on that? Or Ben?
No, I just want to say thank you to Ben and to Greg for very interesting presentations. It was particularly good to see the developer tool and the comprehensive feasibility report that comes from that. We have had a couple of questions. One's been answered already, but I'll read it out just so that everybody can hear that one and the response. The first question, Ben, as you answered, was, is there a minimum size site or number of units to be cost effective?
So yeah, sorry, just to re-answer and clarify that. We really, especially if we were funding it, we'd be looking for 25 to 50 units really. But any site where they can fit, we can make it work. It was obviously, as with anything, the larger volume you buy in, the more cost effective it is. But really our sweet spot, if you like, where it works best is around 100 to 200 units, which is a footprint of 50 going 4 high.
Great, thank you.
I'll follow on with that if you like. Gary, I think you had a question about garage sites. Garage sites is something we have built on before. The Cardiff one was actually a garage site plus a little bit more space. So that got 24 units on there. So again, it's each site we'll take on its merit. We'll look at every single site and we're happy to build every site, but it is obviously much more cost effective, the sort of larger schemes that you get. Hopefully that answers those questions. Do ping another one in there if it doesn't. Liz, emergency accommodation, or can we make them space standards? So we do make them to space standards. So our type 3 qualifies as a type 1, as a 1 bedroom on the minimum space standards, which is 45 square meters, or that's 45 square meters. The minimum space standards is 45. That's about 48. So, it's 43 and 45. But that type 3 is suitable as a 1 bedroom to the space standards, and it's up to full building regs as well. What we found is it's more suitable for emergency accommodation because housing associations, councils, whoever it might be, public bodies that are using them, rather than putting 1 person in 3 containers, they'd prefer to put 6 across that. So it gives them more flexibility of the amount of people they can house. But in answer to your question, yes, we can make them to space standards, and we can keep adding more and more and more on, essentially, to make them larger if needs be.
Good, thank you, Ben. So we'll just wait a moment. If anybody else has any further questions, please ping them our way. Otherwise, we're very happy to receive them after the webinar. SWPA will be issuing a copy of the presentation and a quick follow-up email to you all. We'll also include contact details for ISO Spaces for if you'd like to speak to them directly about any requirement. If you'd like to speak to us about potential procurement routes on any potential project with ISO Spaces, then do please get in touch. We're very happy to answer any questions that you might have. I don't believe there's any more questions and answers coming through. Leave it a moment. Okay, so just to say to all attendees, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.